At long last, it's finally here. After having seen the further adventures of Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, and a bunch of intergalactic misfits, we've finally come to the biggest Marvel movie since, well, their first big team-up. I'm of course talking about Avengers: Age of Ultron. Now for this review, I'm joined by my brother and fellow YouTuber,
Hey Kari Dude 54. Come on, it makes sense given that this is a team-up movie.
Well, you got me there. Anyway, let's get down to business. This movie starts with a bang. The titular superheroes are raiding a Hydra base and fighting the good fight.
Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hawkeye, Hulk, and Black Widow are back in action,
cleaning up the last remnants of their enemies and making the world a safer place. Finally, they find what they're looking for, Loki's scepter.
Before Thor takes it back to Asgard, Tony Stark asks to study its contents with Dr. Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk.
What they find is that it holds the final piece to Ultron, an artificial intelligence unit that Stark and Banner previously abandoned. Although he was originally designed to save the Earth so that the Avengers are no longer needed, Ultron soon decides that the Earth needs to evolve. So, he recruits two twins with special powers given to them by experimentation, and he sets out to destroy the Avengers and the human race to make room for machines.
And there we have our movie. I don't know about you, but I liked it even more than the first one.
Now, why is that? Was it because of Ultron?
Partly, yeah. I thought he was the best villain that Marvel has put out thus far. He definitely had the most interesting backstory, that's for sure. He seemed like a more personal enemy for the team. He was Tony Stark's greatest success and also his greatest failure. Also, he was created to prevent the need for the Avengers, so it's sort of like he was made to eliminate them.
I do have to admit, out of the Phase 2 Marvel villains, Ultron is the best. James Spader owns this character. He's cold, methodical, and menacing, sure, but he's also very sarcastic, witty, and almost theatrical at times. His speeches lend a vaguely biblical quality to his ambitions, but he also acknowledges the cliched nature of his, quote, evil plan.
Now, the personal aspect is where this movie actually works the most. I thought the back and forth banter or conversations between the characters was far more believable than the last Avengers movie. They seem more comfortable with each other's company, and the actors have enough chemistry to where they can just constantly bounce off one another in a real natural ease.
In addition, since they have already been established, we can actually go deeper with these characters in terms of their personalities and motivations. The first act of this movie is fairly standard stuff. The Avengers fight some bad guys, make some jokes, and pal around in their downtime. Then, the second act really allows us to go more in-depth with the characterization.
Right, we really get to dive into these characters, especially with the ones that we didn't spend a great deal of time with in the first one. Overall, I felt that this movie was a lot more well-rounded than the first.
See, that is actually where we disagree. The story, in my opinion, was a little too packed. Nowhere was this more noticeable than the third act, where they are trying to build on the plot involving Ultron while simultaneously setting up the future conflict with the Infinity Stones. At the same time, the film was still trying to balance all of these different heroes and their story arcs. It seems like Joss Whedon slightly overreached with what he could accomplish in 2.5 hours. This script was just so stuffed to the brim with characters and plot threads that it just became a mess at times. Kind of like the current seasons of Arrow and Game of Thrones.
Hey, spoiler alert! Anyway, I will admit that it was packed to the brim, but to me it just worked. It was just the right amount, and a lot of it was because of the actors. Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Jeremy Renner, Mark Ruffalo, and Scarlett Johansson are so comfortable with their respective characters that their performances just felt very natural. I think that helped carry the story for me.
Regarding those characters and their relationships, I gotta say I have mixed feelings about the romance between Bruce Banner and Black Widow. On one hand, Ruffalo and Johansson have fairly appealing chemistry and do a good job of conveying the tragic nature of their circumstances. On the other hand, it seems like yet another step away from what was established in The Incredible Hulk, which is a shame. I really like that one.
Well, sorry to disappoint you, but Marvel doesn't want to acknowledge that movie. I know you prefer Edward Norton, but I think Ruffalo's better. Anyway, what did you think of the new characters?
I actually liked them more than I thought I would. Paul Bettany, who up to this point has voiced Stark's butler Jarvis, actually gets to play the Vision. He's sort of childlike at first, but at the same time, he has a wisdom and a nobility that make for a fascinating character that I want to know more about in future films. Then we have Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch. Not who I would have chosen, frankly. I probably would have gone with Catherine Isabel. That being said, Olsen still did a great job of inhabiting the role, bringing a vulnerable naivete and a mischievous side that make her an intriguing addition to the team.
Yeah, Vision was cool, I guess, but I don't think he was developed quite enough. The same goes for Scarlet Witch's powers, in my opinion, but I did think that old Lizzie Olsen did a good job. As for Quicksilver, I liked him a lot. His snarky nature really defined his personality, sort of like a darker, more foreign version of Tony Stark, maybe.
Aaron Taylor Johnson did bring a decent amount of charisma to Quicksilver, but I didn't like him nearly as much as Evan Peters in X-Men Days of Future Past.
Well, the thing is, he wasn't given as much to work with. One was written for drama, and one was written for comedy. Plus, he was one of the many aspects that made the action scenes fun. They were excellent. They were a lot more team-oriented, which I liked. You see the Avengers coordinating together, doing all sorts of wicked combination attacks. That was great.
Not only that, but the action was shot in a way where it felt very kinetic, fast-paced, and even chaotic at times, but you could still always tell what was going on. It was all elevated further by Danny Elfman's music. Even though he doesn't take a whole lot of risks, he basically emulates what Alan Silvestri did in the first movie, his energetic score still hammers home the feelings of excitement and fun that are a big part of why these movies are so enjoyable.
Yeah, it was enjoyable, wasn't it? Overall, I think it was one of my favorite movies to come out of Marvel thus far in the entire cinematic universe. In my opinion, the dialogue was spot on, the characterization was excellent, and every scene felt important. While some plot lines were out of left field, so to speak, I thought that they only added to the characters. The action was spectacular, and I felt that not only was it a great summer movie, but it was just a great movie period for any time of the year, really.
When all is said and done, Avengers Age of Ultron, to me, was an entertaining flick, even though I didn't like it quite as much as you did. The story and cast of characters were a little too crowded to be quite as effective as they could have been. But the acting was very nuanced and charismatic on all fronts. The action sequences were fast-paced and exhilarating, the villain was terrific, and the effects are just about as good as you'd expect. It keeps the Marvel Cinematic Universe going strong while opening the door for intriguing new territory to be explored. Now, I'd like to thank my brother for joining me for this very special review. I put a link in the description, so go explore his channel. He's a fellow writer, though he delves into fiction, so you can check out his stuff here. Any closing thoughts?
Well, I guess all I can say is thanks for watching and putting up with us and our annoying voices. I guess I'll see you guys on the flip side.